Hello YouTube, Derp Nerd here, coming at you with a float plane in Kerbal Space Program. I guess you could say it's a space plane, but it doesn't really get into space. This plane has 3 basic jet engines on it, a lot of fuel, a huge wingspan, and I call it the Swan, because it kind of looks like a swan. It's really durable. We're going to go into time acceleration here, just to get this over with, because it's a long video as is. So now we're just flying along, and I've killed the thrust, and we're going pretty slow, but we're still flying. Now, I've actually used this to rescue astronauts. That's why, rather, Kerbal knots. There's the cockpit in the back, but there's only one guy in it, and the guy is actually in the cockpit in the front. So I've actually used this to rescue some guys that landed about 50 kilometers away. It's fun to mess around with. It has a wonderful glide ratio. So now we're coming into land, we're getting low. Slow down the time for you. I'm sorry about the lag, you're just going to have to deal with it. It's pretty bad. I know why, and I'll be fixing it. It's because I have all the spacecraft landed. So there we go, we landed in the water. But landing in the water is the easy part. I got that on my second attempt to build a float plane, which looked somewhat like this. But taking off, on the other hand, is quite the challenge. But with tuning, I got this to work. So you can see we're trying, and we dip, and now we're taking off again, and there we go. Now this plane, my float plane, is very maneuverable. In fact, there's actually a problem with it, because if I try, it can really maneuver quickly. So I can do a lot of pitch instantaneously, almost, and it will cause it to flat spin sometimes. So got to avoid that. It's almost impossible to get out of the flat spin, because its wingspan relative to its length is pretty. It's almost 1-to-1. It's actually the length is less than that. So now we're going to go really fast and try and get back in land, and we'll mess around with it a little more. But it's pretty fun. You can fly it anywhere, really. I mean, we've used hardly any fuel. It has a 20-to-1 glide ratio. Now, glide ratio is, the technical term is how many miles it will fly for 1 mile of dropping. Now, of course, we don't measure this in Kerbal Space Program with miles. We use kilometers and meters. But it's the same. It flies 20 kilometers for every 1 kilometer drop in height. It's pretty impressive. It can go for quite a ways. We've used hardly any fuel. You can see it still looks like we're full. We've used maybe, 5 fuel out of our 480, I believe, or 500 fuel. So now we're coming into land, and this thing is crazy durable. Now, crazy durable. Now we're coming in, and I'm actually going to hit the front of the runway, and it'll be quite humorous, but it will stay in one piece, because the bottom part of the aircraft has to be really durable. We are already traveling at like 30 meters per second at least, so that's pretty cool. It's actually a bit of a pain to land, because you have to glide for so long beforehand that unless you just hit the runway and apply your brakes, you're just gliding past the runway. I've had problems with that. I just end up gliding past the runway, have to turn around and try and do it again. So, we're going to take off again and demonstrate a bit of the maneuverability. So, first thing we're going to do is a little flip. Now, I'm really worried about flat spinning, so I don't take it as fast as it could have been, but it's still pretty cool. They can do a roll, an Immelman, well, half of an Immelman. So I could have used some yaw when I came out of this turn, when I did the roll, but it kept flying, so we're good. And just kind of come around, swing past these. I'm going to keep my thrust up. You don't even need 1/3 thrust to keep this going. It's accelerating. Okay, I know we're going down, but when it's flying straight, it accelerates at 1/3 thrust. So I could probably get rid of 2 of the engines and just leave one, but then that would throw off my center of gravity, and I'd have to mess with that. That'd be no good. So now we're going to turn around and land again. Again, I apologize for the lag. It bugs me. I'm gonna take care of it. So this time I try yawing to turn, and it works surprisingly well. I mean, usually you have to roll and then try and pitch up, but this time I was just messing around with yawing, and since it's going so slow, it redirects pretty fast with just a little thrust in that direction. I think I killed my thrust by now. So we're coming into land, and it's pretty boring from here on out. Pretty typical. It's really sturdy aircraft. I'll probably post it below in the description if anyone's interested. So, lag kicked in again. This landing's a lot nicer than the other one, but it doesn't show how durable it is. Except that I land only on the front wheel initially, which is kind of funny. You see, I'm gliding and I'm just forcing it down. There we go. Hit the front wheel, left wheel, right wheel, braking. And this thing takes off at like 30 meters per second. It's a very slow takeoff speed. But anyway, yeah, the pilot doesn't have much of a view. He's flying on instruments. And that is my float plane. Thanks for watching.